We continue a next weather alert as we are tracking some of the severe weather from earlier today. In fact, now the National Weather Service is going out and conducting some surveys. I'm meteorologist Sarah Robleski with weather producer here, executive weather producer Terry Ellison. You were here this morning with Jacob Wyckoff, and you were tracking these storms. And it did look pretty.
It's been a busy day. It's been a real busy day, and now we're starting to see, thanks to our chopper, some of the actual damage that we were reporting on this morning as Jacob and I were on the air. We were theorizing all morning just from looking at radar that there was some sort of debris in the air. We have something that's called a correlation coefficient, kind of a technical word, but it was showing that some debris was flying in the air on a path from Scituate to Johnston, Rhode Island, to North Providence, Rhode Island, and then into parts of southeastern Mass, and now there it is. I
mean, look at this. You can actually see here, and this is a really good viewpoint, that you have numerous trees impacted and ripped, and you can still see that some of the root, of course, of the trees are there, but they're shredded. It's almost like they were just taken off the branches and thrown in different directions, twisted to that particular tree. So this definitely looks more tornadic than it does straight line wind damage as well.
Absolutely. That's a great shot right there. You can see the trees sort of laying in different directions. So when we usually see straight line winds, or what we call a microburst, all the trees will be pushed in one direction. And in here, although right on the left side of the screen, it does look that way, on the right side of the screen, they're going in different directions. So I can almost, it certainly looks tornadic to me, and I think that's what we thought all morning long, that this certainly looked like a tornado. And the National Weather Service is down in Rhode Island now. They're also in parts of southeastern Mass. They got a lot of work to do to survey all this today.
Yeah, because they also confirmed a tornado in North Attleboro as well as Mansfield. This is from, I guess you could say, the parent storm, right? We saw this developing in Scituate, Rhode Island, and it continued its path. We actually had video, too, of what looks to be a tornado going over 295. Now, of course, once you get over 295 in Rhode Island, then you get to Johnston, Rhode Island. And now looking at some of the damage as that parent storm continued its track through Attleboro and Mansfield, we can still see that there was numerous spots that had damage. This is in Mansfield. You can still see very similar situation where you have, of course, that twisting and turning of the bark there, trees going down in different directions. And when you get them just snapped like toothpicks, I mean, you know, look at that. That's twisting. That, to me, definitely is a sign of a tornado.
Yeah, and that's just what the National Weather Service said. They've already confirmed that a tornado did touch down in Mansfield. They're out surveying to determine how strong was it, the exact path length and path width. Those are just the nitty-gritty details, but today we had at least 2 tornadoes, if not more, throughout Rhode Island and southeastern Mass.
Well, that's one thing too. They need to determine, you know, how many times did it touch down? Is it from that same parent storm, or were there new tornadoes that formed? This one, I think, this video is so amazing, because after you go to this uprooted tree, we're actually going to see more trees along this baseball field here that are on top of the fence. But you can see this tree just couldn't withstand the winds that were pushing on through. While there's other trees that are up, you go across and you just see that there's some pockets of really just immense. Oh, this is back to Rhode Island here. You can see this is pretty incredible.
Trees laying down in all different directions. An obvious sign of tornadic winds there earlier this morning. You know, just a matter of, was it an EF1? Was it an EF0? Yeah. Typically, our tornadoes here in southern New England are of the lighter, quote-unquote, lighter variety, EF0s, EF1s, and my guess is that they'll probably find the same here, maybe up to an EF2, we'll see.
We haven't had an EF2 tornado since 2014. Yeah,
almost 10 years, yeah.
So, and we've had, you know, numerous tornadoes before, but currently we're going to continue to climb. You know, typically Massachusetts sees about 1 to 3 a year, but we're already at 4.
We've had 4 before 6 today, yeah. And I would guess 2 or 3 more today. I think the most ever recorded is 12.
12, yeah.
So that's a number we don't necessarily want. That's a record we don't want to match, for sure.
But you can see where the path of this tornado presumably went on through. and just, I mean, the crews are going to have a lot of work to clean up. And that's one thing too, is the National Weather Service really needs to get out there before the crews do, because they want to make sure, they want to see where the trees are laying down. And a lot of times the crews are like, we just need to do our job. We need to get these trees up and get people back to their power. But
so hard to do a survey in this part of the country, or I mean, just think about how densely populated our area is, and we have very little video of this morning, and it's because our tornadoes they tend to be quick spin-ups and also rain-wrapped, so they're not like those classic Midwestern tornadoes that you see from miles and miles away. They're just picturesque. Here, they spin up, they touch down, they pop up. Before you know it, it's many times even before you get a warning out. And again, it can be down for a couple hundred yards and then pop up and disappear again. So, and you may never see it because it's wrapped with rain.
Yeah, you know, the path of the storms this morning, you know, as they continued out of Rhode Island and through parts of Massachusetts, we also had images from Weymouth, and sure enough, the National Weather Service says that they are going to be going out there to survey it as well, trying to determine if it was straight line wind damage or if there was a tornado. This gentleman here obviously has a lot of work to do, and he's not going to wait for them to look, but you can see that there is some damage there as well. Trying to see if we can see just besides that tree and that fence. That's the thing too, is a lot of times you can see the signature on radar, Terry, but then the question is, does it touch ground? Does it actually fully come together and create pockets of damage? It can look really good, but until you get that confirmation, that's why the National Weather Service has to go out and survey it. Yeah,
our radars are so good now. The technology is so advanced that we can see rotation at different levels of the atmosphere. So a lot of times we'll go on TV, give you a tornado warning because we see some rotation on radar, but it's not obvious that tornado is reaching the ground. Of course, this morning it obviously did in a couple locations, but
yeah, this was a cemetery here that was impacted with a tree uprooted, so they're obviously trying to clear that pretty quickly here. And you know, that was something that you and Jacob were also talking about this morning as the storm was pushing on through, and it was also close to the radar. It was really hard to see sometimes just how strong the velocity couplet was, because you know the beam was looking up a little bit higher. So
there's no ideal situation. It seems like some of the tornadoes we had earlier this summer were too far away from the radar, so we were seeing them at too great a distance. This morning it was too close to the radar, which is down in Taunton, Massachusetts. But either way, what we saw this morning, which was evident, again, was that debris signature. So on a radar, there's a correlation coefficient, it's called. And if you see what looks like different from what the surroundings look like, so instead of just rain, you see different colors, and you know that there's something different in the air.
Different objects.
Yeah, so this morning it was debris. It was literally branches, leaves, perhaps even trees. We saw even a boat was lifted up and moved in one location. Wow. So it was pretty evident this morning that what we were seeing was tornadic.
I mean, you can see here, there's multiple trees that were impacted, you know, and wow, these workers are doing a pretty good job getting it all cleaned up. And I mean, at least we have improvement this afternoon. I mean, there's a few showers popping up now, but to get a lot of work. And it looks like there are many communities that were impacted from severe weather this morning. And into, of course, as we go into the afternoon hours, we'll get confirmation from the National Weather Service. Again, we do have confirmed 2 tornadoes or a tornado touching down in both North Attleboro and Mansfield, and they're investigating Johnston, Rhode Island. They're also investigating Scituate and investigating Weymouth.
Yeah, and this just goes to show that when we go on TV and tell you to get into your tornado safe place in your basements, and a lot of folks say, it's New England, you know, what could go wrong? I mean, one of these trees falls on your homes, and thankfully we have heard of no injuries, anything like that today. And again, lucky, that's just luck. I mean, one of these trees falls in the wrong place, and you know, something tragic could happen. But back in Mansfield.
Back to Mansfield. You know, Terry, from your experience, my experience, looking at some of the damage here, you know, we've seen what an EF2 can do in Revere, and obviously impacting parts of the population. I would really think that this would be considered on the weaker rating of an EF, maybe a 0, potentially up to a 1.
Agreed, yeah.
I just don't see extensive damage enough to see a higher rating.
Yeah, the little video that we did see, and there's been a few little bits of video. There's one from a truck driver who had and the tornado looked rather small, rather weak, and just kind of quick moving. Of course, we don't have video of the entire extent of what happened, but nothing that we've seen on video or what we've seen here so far shouts out anything more than EF0, EF1 damage, at least not at this point.
But it does look like a tornado damage. I mean, looking at that video right there, you can see the bark is just twisted. It looks like toothpicks, and it's very pocket. They're very lucky that it's in that wooded area, because you have a lot of homes. You've got obviously a baseball field. Actually looks like, again, that there were some trees that were knocked down in that area, and some that did not get impacted at all. So that could mean that it was a thinner, weaker sort of tornado.
And perhaps even popping up and down. In other words, it could have touched ground for 100, 200 yards and then lifted and then dropped back down. That's probably what happened as this thing traveled from parts of Rhode Island, again, into southeastern Massachusetts. Probably was touching ground, lifting up, touching ground, lifting up, and just scattered debris there over the fields.
You can see that tree did not stand a chance, and it's still rooted, and that's also another thing that you can tend to see. When you have straight line winds, it sort of flattens everything. This tornado, it could have just picked up the branches, ripped them off, and deposited them to the side, or blew them over, and unfortunately now you just have this sort of celery stalk just standing
Another thing to consider is just how wet it's been and how stressed the trees have been. I mean, you had last summer one of the driest summers on record. The trees were stressed and dry. And then this summer, one of the wettest summers on record. A lot of the ground is saturated, and it doesn't take much wind. Some of these EF0, EF1s, the winds are 80, 85, 90 miles an hour, which it's decent, but given the precedent conditions and how wet it's been, it doesn't take much to topple the trees, given how stressed they've been.
Yeah, but I mean, you can see that this one has just been twisted midway through. So that had to be a strong wind going in different directions and just sort of twisted it off like a top. So, of course, as the one thing National Weather Service, while they're on the ground looking at this, they also look at videos from viewers sent in. They'll look at this video from SkyEye, and that will also help them determine ratings and the path and all of that, which hopefully we'll be able to get later on today and be able to share that with viewers on the WBZ News at 5 and 6.
And they're probably utilizing some drones as well.
Yeah.
There's so many ways now to survey and see video pre, during, and post, something like this. Much easier now than it was, say, 20, 30 years ago when they were literally walking through the woods trying to figure out which way trees were falling. Now we can see firsthand, an hour or two after the event, what's going on.